This video is going to talk about volume. Volume is taking the two-dimensional idea of area and turning it into 3 dimensions. So with a 2-dimension area, we want to know how much can I fit into this shape. When we turn it into volume, then we go ahead and we try to figure out how much can I fit into this 3-dimensional space. So area might be trying to wallpaper a wall, while volume might be trying to figure out how many ping pong balls can you fit into a room so that you can prank, your sibling, your parent, definitely not your teacher. So let's go ahead and let's take a look at this first shape. This first shape has a length of 7, a width of 6, and a height of 21. Now, to figure out the volume, we're going to follow this formula, V equals LWH. So I'm going to go ahead and erase this, and we are going to go ahead and write out the formula. And then all I have to do is plug in the numbers. So V equals 7, the width is 6, the height is 21. Keep in mind that no sign means multiply. So because there's no sign in between the L, the W, and the H, you have to multiply each of these numbers. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start solving. I have 7 times 6. I know that 7 times 6 is 42. And then I have 42 times 21. So I'm going to go ahead over here. 42, 21, 2 times 1 is 2, 4, done with the 1. And I'm going to get 882. So the volume of this figure is going to be 882 feet. Now the label is very important. When we measure the distance of a line, it's just one dimension. It's just going straight. So that would just be feet. Area is 2 dimensions. Area is going to be feet squared because you're going across and up and down. Volume, you're going across, up and down, and forward back. So that's going to be 3 dimensions. So we're going to say the volume is 882 feet cubed, or to the 3rd power. Let's go ahead and let's take a look at another example. I'm going to go ahead and write out the formula. Length times width times height. And I'm going to plug in the length and the width and the height. On a rectangle, doesn't really super matter what you label as the length, the width, and the height. Keep in mind that height is always pretty much the easiest to identify because height goes up and down. So, my length is going to be 35, my width is going to be 3, and my height is going to be 10. When I multiply 35 times 3, I'm going to get some math work. I'm going to get 105. Then I have 105 times 10, and I know that when I multiply something by 10, all I do is I add a 0 to the end of it. So it's going to be 1,050 centimeters cubed. So let's go ahead and let's go take a look at some examples where we're given the volume, but we're missing a different dimension. So, over on this rectangular prism, we are given the volume. First, let's write out the formula. We're given the volume of 64. We know that the length is 4. We know that the width is 4. We don't know the height. So we're given 4 times 4 times h. Now, in order for us to figure out the height, what we need to do is we need to solve this equation backwards. There's a couple different ways you could go about this. Either way is okay. I could go ahead and take 4 times 4 and multiply them together and know that 4 times 4 is 16 and get 64 equals 16h. And in order to get rid of that 16h, I would divide by 16 on both sides. And that would end up getting me whatever h is. So I would go over here, because there's room over here, and I would show 64 divided by 16. I would know that 16 is pretty close to 20 and 64 is pretty close to 60. So I'm going to try 3 and see if that works. 3 times 6 is 18. 3 times 1, that's going to be 48. Well, let's try subtracting. 6, 5, that's going to be 14. I'm going to end up with 16 here. Because this number is the exact same as this number, I know I can do better. So scratch that. 64 divided by 16, let's try 4. 6 times 4 is 24. 4 times 1 plus 2 is 6. Hey, look, it works exactly. Life is great. So I'm going to put a 4 here and know that my height is going to be 4 meters. But maybe you don't want to divide by such a big number. Maybe you'd rather do a little bit more division but with smaller numbers to work with. So you can also do this. Write out the formula, as you should do every time. And then I'm going to plug in my numbers again. 64 equals 4 times h. And I'm not going to multiply 4 times 4 together. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start getting rid of the 4s one at a time. So I'm going to divide by 4 here and divide by 4 here. So over here, 4 over 4 is the same as 1. That's just going to disappear. I'm going to have 4 times h. And over here, I'm going to have 64 divided by 4. Well, 64 divided by 4 is going to be 16. So I'm going to put 16 over here. Now I have 4 times h equals 16, and I can do that. I'm going to divide by 4 on both sides, and I'm going to get h equals 4 meters. You get the same answer no matter which way you do it. It's just a question of how do you want to approach it, or how do you want to do that. So let's go ahead and let's take a look at this last one. V equals length times width times height. My volume is 180. My length is unknown, so we're just going to leave that as L. My width is going to be 2, and my height is 10. Now you have to think to yourself, how do you want to do this? How do you want to approach this? Myself, I'd rather multiply everything together so I have less dividing to do. Also, I know that dividing by 20 is going to be relatively simple. So I'm going to multiply 2 times 10 and get 20. Now I have 180 equals L times 20. When I divide by 20 on both sides, I have 180 divided by 2, or just 18, or 180 divided by 20, or just 18 divided by 2. That's going to be 9. So my length is going to equal 9 inches. On your homework, you are going to find the volume of a figure find the volume of a prism with a length of 4 miles, a width of 6 miles, and a height of 2 miles.